guys! Welcome to video number 12 in my Python tutorial.
Today we're going to be talking about the data type list, which is widely used within Python. Lists are a data type that allows us to generate, well, you guessed it, lists with different data that can be of different types. So within one list, you can have data of the type string and other data of the type float, for example. The use of lists makes management of different parts of our program much easier because these often have some methods that solve some of the many typical problems that we may experience. The word method refers to a block of instructions or operations that we may perform, but don't worry, we'll go into more detail into what methods are and what they can do when we talk about object-oriented programming. But for now, let's think of these as tools that we can use to handle lists and other data, each with their own methods. So a list is defined with a name, and then we place the assignment operator equal, and then between brackets, the values that we want to incorporate to the list, all of them separated with commas. For example, we could create a list that contains the words Pinky, Grumpy, and the numbers 10 and 3. So in doing this, we can print the list simply by using the print function and the name of it. So print my list. To access each of the list's elements, we can index it. This is due to the list's elements being ordered with a number, which is called the index, and it indicates as the position in which they appear within the list. Indexing starts in 0 for the first element and goes one by one. So for example, in the previous list, Grumpy is our element number 1 and not number 2, because Pinky is 0 and then Grumpy is 1. This can be a bit confusing at the beginning, but don't worry, you'll probably make some mistakes with indexing, but you'll get better at it with time. So then, if you want to print the element Grumpy of the list, we can have it within a print function. So we print my list, and then the value between brackets. So in this case, number 1, and that is the index, the position that the element Grumpy has in our list. If we run the code, we'll see it runs as expected. So we can change any element's value if we want to. For that, we only need to write the list's name and in brackets the index number of the element we wish to modify, and then equal it to the value we want it to have. For example, say we want to change the value of Pinky to the value Rough. Then what we have to do is write my list, and then between brackets the value 0, because that's the index of the element Pinky, and then equal it to the value we want it to have, in this case, Rough. So if we print the full list, we can see that it'll show the modified value as we expected. We can also know the size of a list if we want. This can be really useful in certain situations when we're handling big lists. To know the number of elements that it contains. For that, we use the function len, which is short for length, and it can tell us, so within the function, we need to write the name of the list, and it can tell us the number of elements that it has. For example, print, then len my list. So then if we run the code, we'll see that the result is 4, which is exactly the number of variables in our list. Then we have yet to talk about all the methods associated with lists, as we talked about before. It can be quite useful to know all this, and it'll speed up our work in solving different problems. There are many different types of methods, so here we'll talk about the ones that I consider the main ones that you should know about to at least get a feel for the universe of things that you can do. Let's start with the append method. Append allows us to add an element to a list, and to use it, we have to write first the name of the list, then a dot, and then the word append, all together with a parenthesis, and the element that we want to add within the parentheses, of course. So what append does is it incorporates this element at the end of our list. So say we want to add the word squirrel to our list. In that case, we should write my list, then a dot, then the word append, and then within single quotes, the element to store. In this case, the word squirrel. We use the single quotes because it's the string data type. So then if we print the list now, we'll see that it prints every element with the squirrel word included. Another method that's widely used is the pop method. This one allows us to remove an element from a list. For example, let's assume we want to get rid of the number 10 in our list. For that, what we have to do is use the pop function with the argument 2. So if we run the code, we'll see that number 10 is no longer part of our list. Actually, what the pop method does is take the element out of the list, and what we can do is use it in other places of our list, for example, with the help of a variable. So if for the previous example we create a variable x, then our value 10 will stop being part of the list, and it will be part of the variable. We can look at this if we print the list's value and x's value. Upon running it, we'll see it works as expected. One last thing about the pop function, if you don't write any value within your parenthesis, then the method understands that what you want to remove is the last element of your list. Then we have the count method, which allows us to know the number of times an element is repeated within a list. So now let's create a new list, one list, and we'll equal it to, between brackets, 1, 2, 3, and 1. Now, if we print the list using the print function, we can do one list and then dot count, and within a parenthesis, the value 1. So then, when we run the program, the result is 2, because the value 1 is repeated in this list 2 times. On the other hand, if we were to write 3 within our parenthesis, then upon running the program, we'd see that it returns the number 1, because number 3 is in our list only once. There are situations when we'll need to add an element to our list, but we don't want it to be added at the end of our list, as we did with the append method, but we want it placed in a specific position, and for that we can use the method insert. Within the parenthesis of this method, we have to write the index value, meaning the position where we want to insert the new value, and then the value that we want to indeed make part of our list. When working with lists, especially lists with numbers, we'll frequently need them sorted from lowest to highest or vice versa. To do this, we have a method in Python called sort. To use it, just like with the other methods, we have to first write the name of our list, and then after a dot, the word sort with the parenthesis. So this way we can sort the elements from lowest to highest. To sort them the other way around, meaning highest to lowest, what we can do is place the value reverse equals true inside the parenthesis this way. Then if we run the code, we'll see it works as expected. One thing to note about the sort function is that for it to work, all elements have to be of the same data type, meaning either all strings or all integers, for example. Because if they're not, the program will then go into an error and it won't be able to know that, for example, the string banana is higher than number 3, or how to determine that. So in that case, strings will be sorted alphabetically, but again, you have to be careful because sort can tell apart lowercase and uppercase. Sometimes it's necessary to make a copy of the list and store it in another variable, to then be able to modify it and compare it to the original. For that, we have the method copy. This one allows us to copy a list's content into a new one. Let's look at it in the following example. Let's create a list called second list and assign it the value that's returned of the copy method applied in the list oneList. If we now modify one list, for example, let's say we modify the second element of that list, we can see that the change is shown in oneList, but not on second list. And finally, let's look at the method clear. This one allows us to, as you probably expected, clear the content of a list. For that, what we have to do is simply call on the method, and with that, we'll have the entire contents erased. Let's look at an example. OneList dot clear, and then our parentheses. If we print the variable's value, we can see that the list is empty. Now, in this course, we'll mostly be dealing with lists when arranging data, but since they're quite similar, it's good that you have a little idea of one of the other ways we can do that, which are tuples. A tuple is a data type that's similar to lists, but they can't be modified, and they have fewer methods that you can use to work with them. To define them is just as what we did with lists, but we use parentheses instead of brackets, so that we can let the program know what data will be part of our tuple. And don't worry, we'll go into this more in future videos. So that's it for today. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed, and code up!